At exactly 0923 hours on the 14th of June, 2025, the guided missile cruiser USS Princeton sliced through the turquoise expanse of the South China Sea on yet another freedom of navigation patrol. The air was routine until her Spy 1 radar painted a contact that would spike every watchstander's heartbeat. 200 kilometers out, a Chinese Type 052D destroyer, loitering like a shark, suddenly surged from 18 to 30 knots in under 90 seconds. The reason? Orders from Beijing. Intercept the Americans, force them to blink. But Beijing was about to learn why challenging the US Navy in open water is a spectacularly bad idea. Riding shotgun was the Nimitz Carrier Strike Group, 104,000 tons of steel and diplomacy, doing what American sailors have done for 75 years, keeping the world's most vital trade lanes open. $3.4 trillion in annual commerce flowed here like clockwork, from microchips to LNG tankers, and the Nimitz sat 180 nautical miles from the nearest Chinese territory, on a predictable course, with transparent intentions. Professional seamanship, lawful mission, zero intimidation. That's the difference between a real navy and a floating militia. And if China wanted a showdown, they'd just pick the wrong ocean. At 0926 hours, the Princeton's Combat Information Center completed target classification. No more guessing, this was a People's Liberation Army Navy Type 052D destroyer, moderate to high threat level, capable of launching YJ-18 anti-ship cruise missiles. At its current heading, the Chinese ship would be inside weapons release range in just 14 minutes. The math was simple but ugly for them. The YJ-18 second could cover the gap in under 4 minutes once airborne, but the Princeton's SM-6 second, in surface mode, could swat them from 240 nautical miles away. The recommendation was clear: go to general quarters. But the captain, a veteran of more than a few tense standoffs, leaned back with the calm of someone holding a stacked deck. "Let's see how badly they want to embarrass themselves first," he said. Confidence American style. The stakes were bigger than brass and steel. The South China Sea's surface was a chessboard of civilian traffic, 46 commercial vessels within 50 miles. A Singapore-flagged container ship packed with semiconductors. A South Korean LNG tanker worth $200 million. All of them relying on the US Navy to keep these waters free from becoming Beijing's private swimming pool. At 0930, the Princeton's cooperative engagement capability kicked in, instantly sharing every byte of targeting and threat data with the entire Nimitz strike group. The 104,600-ton carrier adjusted her flight operations with Swiss watch precision. On the flanks, the destroyers Chung Hoon and Kidd shifted formation, closing ranks around the carrier. Then came the twist. At 0935, an E-2D Hawkeye, orbiting high at 25,000 feet, peered deep into the northern horizon. Its AN/APY-9 radar swept the sky and picked up multiple launches from the Chinese carrier Shandong. The signatures were unmistakable: J-15 fighters, climbing hard, heading south as if they actually stood a chance. In the air control center, the ops team exchanged knowing glances. They'd seen this movie before. Ski jump launches meant reduced fuel and payload. The Chinese jets were burning precious fuel just trying to reach altitude, while their American counterparts could launch at full combat weight with gas to spare. The Princeton's tactical plot now showed a three-pronged setup: a destroyer closing from the west, a flight of underpowered J-15 second inbound from the northwest, and a whole lot of civilian lives in the crossfire. The Americans weren't looking at a fight, they were looking at a live fire tutorial on why blue water dominance still wears red, white, and blue. And the opening credits were just rolling. The Hawkeye's radar feed told the story before the first missile was ever fired. The J-15 second clawing their way skyward were struggling hard. Every pilot in the CIC knew why. The Shandong's beloved ski jump launch system might look good on propaganda reels, but without catapults, those fighters left the deck with reduced fuel and weapons loads. They were now burning through that limited fuel just to gain altitude, climbing like overweight freight elevators while their American counterparts launched at full combat weight and full tanks. Then sonar chimed in. 80 nautical miles away, a possible submerged contact, Type 039 diesel-electric submarine. The acoustic signature was laughable, like a freight train underwater. Any competent subskipper would have been mortified. The Princeton sonar team had him pegged, position fixed to within meters, hours before he even raised his snorkel. This wasn't a fearsome show of force, it was a multi-domain intimidation campaign held together with 1,992nd-era bolts and wishful thinking. Surface ships built before the iPhone, carrier aircraft that couldn't carry full loads, and submarines loud enough to be tracked on AM radio. Unfortunately for Beijing, they'd just brought museum pieces to a knife fight. By 0937 hours, the Nimitz's flight deck erupted into the kind of controlled chaos only an American carrier can master. Steam hissed from the catapults, crew in color-coded jerseys swarmed the deck, and the 1st Division of FA-18E Super Hornets from VFA-14 top hatters rocketed off the bow every 45 seconds. Each jet was at full combat weight, burners blazing, climbing hard through 15,000 feet. Their AN, APG-79 AESA radars 1,000 transmit, receive modules apiece, were already painting the inbound J-15 second at maximum range. It wasn't a fair fight. While the Chinese fighters relied on mechanically scanned radars that swept back and forth like a lighthouse broadcasting its own position, the Super Hornets tracked dozens of targets simultaneously, feeding that data through Link 16. In the American network, when one aircraft saw something, they all saw it instantaneously. The Chinese? They were stuck in the 20th century voice comms, eyeballs, and a prayer. Coordinating under those conditions was like playing chess blindfolded against an opponent who could see the whole board. Then the EA 18-gram Growlers joined the party, sliding into jamming orbits 100 miles out. Their ALQ-99 pods lit up the ether, frying enemy radar and comms. On the Chinese scopes, the air picture turned surreal. Ghost contacts multiplied. Real aircraft vanished into noise. 4 Super Hornets became 12, then 20. Radar locks broke, reformed, then broke again. Chinese pilots were forced to chase phantoms, while the real threats maneuvered unseen. The Americans pressed their advantage with the wall formation, a triple-tier defense perfected over decades. High cap at 35,000 feet, medium cap at 25,000, low cap at 15,000. Overlapping engagement envelopes, mutual support, and zero dead space. For the J-15 second, there was no way forward without flying into someone's missile envelope. Meanwhile, the Nimitz's destroyer escorts adjusted positions with the precision of a drill team. Each ship's Aegis system was slaved into the same tactical picture, weapons free the moment the rules of engagement allowed. Overhead, an RC 135-volt rivet joint, ungainly, unarmed, and devastatingly effective, had been boring holes in the sky for 6 hours. Its sensors cataloged every Chinese emission, from radar pulses to encrypted comms. In the linguist station, Mandarin specialists were laughing into their headsets. Chinese pilots were requesting permission to perform aggressive flybys. In the time it took Beijing to approve a move, the tactical situation would have shifted 3 times over. This was the essence of American carrier warfare: multi-layered dominance. Fighters controlled the skies. Growlers owned the spectrum. Rivet joints vacuumed up every electronic whisper. And the data flowed seamlessly across every cockpit and CIC in the strike group. The J-15 second were still inbound, climbing slowly, burning fuel fast. Somewhere in their formation, a Chinese pilot was glancing at his fuel gauge and realizing he might have enough to get to the fight or enough to get home, but not both. The Americans didn't need to guess. Their Link 16 picture already told them exactly how this engagement would end. At 0947 hours, the Chinese destroyer Jiaonang crossed a line that would have triggered instant retaliation from any other navy. Her Type 346 ampere phased array radar stopped its wide area search and locked into fire control mode aimed squarely at the USS Nimitz. In naval warfare, that's the electromagnetic equivalent of pointing a loaded, cocked pistol right between someone's eyes. Inside the Princeton CIC, the response was immediate but measured. No panic, no flinch. American crews have drilled for this exact moment more times than they can count. The SPY-1 radar operators kept tracking. Fire control solutions were continuously updated, and in every launch cell sat an SM-6 or SM-2 ready to erase the Jiaonang from the map. The destroyer was vulnerable from multiple angles, with zero chance of surviving the first 30 seconds if the shooting started. But the Princeton's fire control radars stayed in standby. This was restraint, not inability. And while the Chinese lock lasted only 30 seconds, the Americans recorded everything: timestamps, bearing, frequency signatures. If the day came when this standoff turned kinetic, the evidence would be ironclad. Up above, the tension snapped into a more personal form of combat. A lone J-15 broke formation, diving toward a Super Hornet with what fighter jocks call a thump, an aggressive, close pass meant to rattle the other pilot. Bad choice. The American, a Top Gun graduate, rolled inverted, yanked hard into the bandit's 6 o'clock, and for 3 full seconds had a perfect shot. His joint helmet-mounted cueing system lit up with the J-15's hot exhaust in infrared. One squeeze, and an AIM-9X would have ended the fight. He didn't squeeze. Professional discipline held the trigger cold. Then came the Chinese submarine's mistake. For the past hour, Princeton's SQQ-89 sonar suite had been tracking a Type 039 diesel-electric sub creeping through the depths. The contact was already fixed to within meters when, at 0951, the sub-captain made a fatal error, raising the snorkel to recharge batteries. TAO. Sonar subsurface contact bearing 159, range 15,000 yards. Contact is snorkeling. Loud, obvious, and now fully classified. The Type 039 was making noise like a freight train underwater. If this had been war, it would have had about 12 seconds to exist before an ASROC tore through the thermocline and turned it into an artificial reef. By now, the tactical picture was unmistakable. Chinese forces had boxed themselves in carrier to the northwest, destroyer to the west, submarine to the southwest. Any fight would be over in minutes. But the Americans weren't here for minutes. They were here to write the kind of demonstration that echoes in enemy war colleges for decades. And the Chinese, whether they admitted it or not, were already playing defense. By 14:30 hours, the USS Nimitz decided it was time to drop the hammer. In less than 20 minutes, her deck launched everything that could fly 48 aircraft in the largest single carrier show of force in years. Super Hornets loaded to the teeth with live ordnance. EA 18-gram Growlers armed with enough electronic warfare gear to black out a city. E-2D Hawkeyes holding the high-altitude command post, orchestrating the fight like a symphony. The Growlers went to work first. ALQ-99 pods spun up to full power, saturating Chinese radar frequencies with pure chaos. On the Shandong CIC screens, the tactical picture dissolved into modern art. Hundreds of false contacts bloomed. Real aircraft vanished into static, and every blip looked like a threat. Controllers couldn't tell friend from foe. Every call for firing solutions was guesswork. Then came the gut punch. 6 nautical miles off Shandong's beam, a Virginia-class attack submarine breached the surface like a black whale, water cascading off her hull in the afternoon sun. She had been shadowing the Chinese carrier group for 8 days undetected. Every anti-submarine helicopter, sonobuoy, and hull-mounted sonar in the Chinese fleet had failed to find her. If this were war, the Shandong would already be gone. For 90 seconds, the Virginia-class boat stayed surfaced long enough for every Chinese lookout to get a crystal-clear view, for every photographer to capture proof, for the humiliation to sink in. Then, as smoothly as she'd arrived, the sub slid back beneath the waves. The message was unmistakable. We own the undersea domain. In the skies, the air battle turned into a clinic. The J-15 second, already climbing on thin fuel margins thanks to their ski jump launches, found themselves locked in defensive turns against Super Hornets that had fuel to burn and missiles for every range. Each merge ended the same American fighters in firing position, Chinese jets dumping speed and altitude, bleeding precious pounds of JP-8. One by one, the J-15 second broke off, noses pointed home. Many hit bingo fuel before even leaving the fight. They returned to Shandong running on fumes, some probably seeing their low fuel warning lights for the first time outside a simulator. By the time the last Hornet checked back in with the E-2D, the Chinese air threat was gone. The carrier's air wing was intact. The strike group was untouched. And over the open waters of the South China Sea, the US Navy had just delivered a live-fire masterclass without firing a shot. By 16:23 hours, the Shandong strike group turned north, Beijing calling it completion of scheduled exercises. Everyone knew the truth. They'd come to intimidate and left humbled. In the South China Sea's vast, contested waters, the US Navy had spoken without firing a shot. For now, this was America's 6th Great Lake, and everyone knew it.